New videos every day. Life, wisdom.
I'm Psychetruth Correspondent Corrina Rachel. And today on the Truth Talks, we're going to be discussing dairy, gluten, and other food allergies. I want to start by asking you if you are a milk drinker. Do you think that milk is a healthy part of a healthy diet? Or do you think that milk is for baby calves? Leave us a comment and let us know. I'm talking today with Beth Whitley. She is an author and holistic nutritionist in Austin, Texas. And we're going to discuss her personal experience with food allergies and what every person should know about the food that they are eating. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, you recently published a book where you discussed how your allergy to dairy and to gluten kind of manifested in a whole lot of different health problems. Can you maybe just give us a background on your experience with those foods?
Sure. I had historically as a child, had some issues when I had dairy, and a lot of people do, stomach aches, diarrhea, that kind of thing, and just sort of ignored it. And then I also had some other digestive issues. And what doctors a lot of people who have digestive problems, and the doctors aren't quite sure what it is, they'll say you have irritable bowel syndrome, and eat more fiber kind of thing. But what I found is a lot of, the things that we're eating are making these symptoms appear. Mm-hmm. So the biggest culprits that I've seen in myself and a lot of my clients that I see are dairy and gluten. Mm-hmm. They're just troublemakers all the way around. And we've been taught that milk is good for us, mm-hmm. Drink your milk. And, as far as, getting calcium and things like that. And it turns out, from certain studies have shown that the calcium in milk is not that absorbable by us. And in fact, as a culture, we drink a lot of milk. We have some of the highest rates of osteoporosis. So it's not always, it's not a health food for many people. And there's a difference between, I also want to address, some people, if they might get a stomach ache, they might be lactose intolerant. That's going to be different than a food allergy because a lactose intolerance is not really activating your immune system, whereas a food allergy is. And another area of confusion is people are using the words food allergy, food sensitivity, food intolerance. Interchangeably, there's a lot of confusion about those words. Mm-hmm. So, rather than get hung up on the language of it, what I want to know is it activating your immune system or not? And if it is, then, you need to stay away from it.
Right. So can you give us an idea of maybe how common it is for people to have a sensitivity or an allergy to dairy, and maybe what would be their clues? What would be some of the clues that they might be able to observe that might lead them down that path?
Well, a lot of people have symptoms, the classic symptoms like stomach ache, digestive problems. Some people have a lot of skin issues, eczema, things like that, sinus. Dairy is very mucus forming, so there might be a lot of mucus in the throat and things like that. Itching, headaches. There's a whole lot of different symptoms that a lot of people don't connect with what they're eating. Mm-hmm. So, in the really obvious ones are hives. Some people get hives. That would be more of an anaphylactic type reaction, and that's frequently diagnosed by using the skin prick tests. But there's also hidden food allergies that we look for in a blood test, and those don't have as obvious of symptoms. So people have to be real aware,
right.
of muscle aches and things like that they don't really attribute to what they're eating.
Right. And you discuss in your book that you actually had the skin prick test for food allergies. And the first time you did it, it actually said that you didn't have any food allergies.
Exactly, it did. And yet I knew that when I ate, dairy in particular, I felt really sick, but it wouldn't show up on the food allergy test. So then I found a doctor who did a different type of testing, and it did show up. It's real important to listen to your body. Tests aren't always accurate, and in different there's different antibodies that the food allergy might be mediated by. So there's IgA, there's IgE, there's IgG, mm-hmm. And depending on what kind of food allergy it is. If it is a food allergy, you're going to require a certain test. But for a lot of people who, the testing can get expensive, I would say start eliminating some things from your diet. Mm-hmm. And the biggest ones, as I said, that I've seen are the dairy and the gluten that cause the biggest health issues for people.
Right. And are you at all able to, kind of guesstimate what the percentage of the population might be, or how common those allergies might be?
I would say, 80 to 90% of the people that I see who have the food allergy tests have dairy and gluten on there. And they had no idea. They would say, they come in saying, I don't have any food allergies. And after we do the test, they have quite a few food allergies. And typically, they're not aware of it, and usually when they take those things out of their diet, they start feeling better, and they're amazed. They're just amazed. They had no idea that this food could make them feel so bad.
Right. And I think that an elimination diet is probably the most cost-effective way to just begin becoming aware of how a food affects you and how taking that food out of your diet affects you. We've recommended, a food journal or something like that.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend for people to try that, and just do one food at a time so you know what it is. Mm-hmm. So if you want to start with dairy, take dairy out. And also you need to educate yourself about what is dairy. I mean, because there's a lot of hidden names that mean dairy that people don't know, like casein, whey, and some other ones, will have dairy in it. Even if it says non-dairy, it might have one of those milk proteins in it. Mm-hmm. So you can get online, and I have a list, you can find lists of ingredients to avoid. So you have to really start to be a savvy grocery shopper and start reading ingredients. It's going to take you a little bit longer,
Right.
But read the ingredients, make sure there's no dairy, and then, like you said, keep a food journal. And I would also suggest logging 2 days later if you have a headache, write that down, so that if that happens, if you start to see patterns of things, headache, stomachache, things like that, after you eat certain foods, you have a pretty good idea.
Great. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about gluten. So maybe a lot of the same things would apply in terms of headaches or hives and a lot of different things. But maybe you can just tell us what gluten is and how people can identify it.
Okay. Gluten is a protein, and it's found in certain grains, specifically wheat, barley, and rye. It's not naturally in oats, but it's frequently in oats because of the cross-contamination and processing. So if people do get oats, they should look for gluten-free oats. But it's a protein that that can just seems to be problematic for people. And a lot of people say, well, we didn't used to have this, we've always, people have always eaten bread, and there was never this gluten issue. But there is actually a very good book out by a Dr. Davis called Wheat Belly, and he specifically talks about the wheat issue. And it's not necessarily gluten related, but just how wheat is grown differently today. And in many of our products today, they're genetically modified, and they're grown differently, and they have these things that our bodies don't know what to do with, they don't recognize what this is. So we start packing on weight and start having disease processes going on. But gluten is a big culprit in food allergies, and just in a lot of people who give up gluten just say they took gluten out and they drop all kinds of weight. It's just the body seems not to like it. And an interesting thing about gluten is some people say, well, I just had a little bit. Well, even just a tiny bit is enough to keep things not unhealthy for you. For example, it's implicated in a lot of autoimmune diseases, especially thyroid disease. So in the patients that I see, we always recommend patients go gluten-free if they have any kind of thyroid issue. And they usually, very often see a huge improvement in their symptoms. And there is a doctor very well versed on the subject of gluten, Dr. Tom O'Brien. If people wanted to look him up, and I went to some of his seminars, and even just the tiniest bit of gluten in like a communion host, if you're Catholic and you get those little communion hosts, is enough to keep disease processes going. And it's underlying a lot of serious diseases.
Goodness. And then for people who really do need to eliminate it, it's then hidden in lots of foods or not on the label. You won't necessarily see gluten.
You will not see gluten. And actually, there's I have a list that's like 3 pages long of ingredients that potentially might contain gluten. So you really have to learn. it's in soy sauce. It's in, you think you're being good. So you really need to educate yourself. There's a good book out by Shelley Case. She updates her book regularly. That she's got a lot of gluten-free products in there. Resources to get gluten-free products, but also a very comprehensive list of what is gluten and what might be gluten and what to look for in ingredients. And again, you're going to be spending time at the grocery store reading labels, but it's really important to do that so you know what you're getting.
Right. And I think that a lot of times people kind of have this feeling like, oh, it's so much trouble, and oh, it's just not worth it, and oh, how am I ever going to resist my this or resist my that? I don't know, how would you respond to people? I'm sure you see that a lot in your practice.
I do see that a lot in my practice, and people are very upset and sometimes devastated that they have to give up, the things that they love. But today there are so many good substitutes out there. I'm not advocating junk food, but I never say never give up. I never have people give up things forever. So, people want to have ice cream, they want to have cake. So on those occasions where you're going to have that, there's a wonderful coconut milk and almond milk ice cream that's absolutely delicious.
I will attest to that.
It's so good, so good. And there's gluten-free pastas, there's gluten-free breads. Not that that's health promoting, but on the occasions that you do want to have that kind of thing, you want to feel like a normal person, you can get a gluten-free, dairy-free pizza and a gluten-free beer, just to be social sometimes. And it's really becoming more mainstream as people are becoming aware. There's a lot of gluten-free options in restaurants, and you just got to and sometimes, the thing that I run into is it might be gluten-free, but it's not dairy-free, because most things when you're ordering out are covered in cheese. Right. So you have to, and frequently the waiters or the people working in the stores, they're not educated on it. So you can't depend on them to have your best interest in mind and give you something that's going to be healthy. So you really need to educate yourself so you know what to order when you go out, what to buy at the grocery store.
Right. And there was something that you said in your book. It was something to the effect of, a lot of people complain that they don't want to give this up, but then when they see the health benefits or how good they feel or that relief from the pain they were experiencing, there's suddenly this, kind of feeling that, wow, that's totally worth it. Yeah. I can avoid this pain I've experienced my entire life just by not eating this certain thing. Yes. And it really almost seems like ridiculously simple when you see that, wow, there's just this really simple solution that can give you the energy you've wanted or relieve you from the pain you've always had.
Exactly. And what I found is, some of those foods are a habit for a lot of people, and they're comfort foods. And, if they address, I also talk in my book about balance, and when you find other things, ways to comfort yourself, that helps. And when you realize what these foods are doing, really look at what they're doing to your body, and you start eating right. When people go through the program that we have at our clinic and they eliminate these foods, and if they're very compliant, at first they're very upset, but then they start to feel really good. And after the program, they can't wait to go back to it. Then they go have what they used to have, that piece of cheese or whatever it is, that pizza, and they feel terrible. Right. And they say it's so not worth it. And they don't even want to go back at that point. They're used to eating healthy, they feel good, and they do not want to go back to how they used to feel.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is, for anybody who's experienced that, is something very real. When you experience how much better you feel, making these really pretty simple dietary changes, it's way less intimidating than it, I think it's always less intimidating on the back end once you've gotten through it, than at the beginning. It seems super intimidating or super hard and super difficult. And people maybe just need to keep their eye on the prize.
Exactly. And I would say give it a good chance. Give it, a good month at a minimum, of really being diligent about giving something up and really trying it and seeing how you feel before you say, I can't do this. But, so you can really realize the benefits. And also, as I said earlier, listening to your body. If your body is reacting, and as a food allergy, and your immune system is reacting, and you keep ignoring that, it will keep progressing. Your body will keep telling you, and you will start getting more serious symptoms until you do finally start to listen. So it's really a good idea to start, listening now and paying attention now and having the food allergy test if possible.
Right. So maybe you could share your personal experience. What was kind of your wake-up call in terms of changing the way you're eating and embracing a new, healthier diet.
Yeah, and I think the wake-up call is a good analogy. I think frequently people do need a wake-up call, and mine was cancer, so that was a real big wake-up call.
Right.
And I really paid attention. And it was a very serious health challenge, and as I said, I think people really need to pay attention to their body. And if you're not feeling well, or if you're having any kind of symptoms, you really need to look at what you're eating. Mm-hmm.
And maybe are there any recommendations for people that maybe are worried about their health or that maybe suspect they have some kind of food allergy, a recommendation you might have?
Well, I would recommend doing the elimination diet that we talked about earlier, and if possible having the food allergy testing. Ideally seeing a functional medicine practitioner at they can visit the website functionalmedicine.org and search by zip code to find one in their area. Just start to take control, start to take steps, and stop watching commercials about what's good for you.
Stop believing.
Stop believing what you're seeing on TV. Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about Beth and her personal journey with cancer and her recovery from cancer, I highly recommend her book, Essential Nourishment. And you can actually find a link in the description of this video where you can purchase this book. I hope that you will like this video, leave your comment. Please share it if you found it interesting or if you think that other people you know could benefit from this information. Be sure to subscribe to Psychetruth so you can see our future videos where we will be busting the biggest weight loss lies and giving you the real tricks to healthy weight loss. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks so much for watching.